Let's imagine an ice age would happen tomorrow. What scenarios could lead to an ice age? How would the Earth look like? Would life still be possible, and what would it be like? Let us find out together today and here on Let's Imagine. Please consider subscribing. It's free, it's easy, and you're signed up to see more imaginational craziness. The last period of glaciation, which is considered as Ice Age by many people, was at its height approximately 20,000 years ago. The triggers for an Ice Age are not completely proven, but it is most likely the result of a complicated dynamic interaction between such things as solar output, distance of the Earth from the Sun, position and height of the continents, ocean circulation, and the composition of the atmosphere. Another cause for ice ages is explained in the Milankovitch cycle that describes variations in eccentricity, axial tilt, and precession resulting in cyclical variation of the solar radiation reaching the Earth. This orbital forcing strongly influences the Earth's climatic patterns. How an ice age occurs depends on many factors. Even though it would not happen overnight, because the process of glaciation takes place over several thousand years, this scenario deals with how our world would look like if it has already happened. So, how would our world look like? The first thing that would happen is that the sea levels would drop dramatically. When the sea is lower, some areas remain above sea level that are underwater now. One example is the North Sea. Large parts of this sea were simply land during the last ice age. People in the Stone Age lived there. The British Isles were not islands at all, but part of the mainland. During an ice age, the ice deposits at the poles would increase and cover regions almost to the mid-latitude area. Because large parts of the Earth would be covered with ice, the sunlight would be reflected more. That would lead to a positive feedback cycle, decreasing the temperatures further. Researchers from the University of Michigan found out that the global average temperature in the last ice age was about 46 degrees Fahrenheit or 7 degrees Celsius. That's about 11 degrees Fahrenheit or 6 degrees Celsius colder than the global average temperature of the 20th century. All that would also affect the general weather patterns. Snow would accumulate. That would change the pattern of trade winds, leading to the deflection of warming currents like the Gulf Stream, what would ultimately lead to a self-sustaining ice age. It could be suggested that extreme phenomena like blizzards would occur more often, making the Earth a rough place to live. All these scenarios inevitably lead to the question whether we would survive at all during an ice age. To ease the tension a little bit, an ice age would probably not lead to an apocalyptic scenario in which we had to hide in bunkers and fear for our survival. The world would change drastically, but there would be enough habitable land to live on. In the last ice age, Canada was covered in several kilometers of ice. So was Scandinavia, the British Isles, and most of northeastern Europe and Russia. But Brazil, Africa, India, and Southeast Asia were all still tropical. Therefore, mankind would gather at the equator, and the only people left in North America or Europe would be nomads or tourists who want to see the old cities. With the drop of sea level, the coastlines would form in a new way. New metropole regions would develop and the borders of states would have to be redefined. This is the point where social tensions come into the consideration. The Earth's population would most likely decrease, because there would be a lack of space to live in. The space to grow food or keep farm animals would be just as limited too, and would also affect the population size. To sum up these thoughts, an ice age wouldn't happen overnight. We would have several years to prepare for it. We currently have the technology to survive many difficult situations, and an ice age is one of them. The only issues to worry about are social or political differences. One of them could be the battle for resources, as the availability would most likely decrease. just because of the fact that most of the land would not be accessible anymore. For the most part, we would have to rely on renewable energies and a political system designed for a global governance in order to ensure an even distribution. In the end, nobody could say how a world would look like during an ice age in the near future. The environmental conditions and social challenges would ultimately lead to scenarios that we cannot predict from our current standpoint. But what we can say though is that we have to take all of these facts into consideration. The rest is up for your imagination. How would you imagine your life during an ice age? Let us know in the comments.